So, hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on the Ecological City Zoom meeting. We have always been doing these meetings in person, usually at the Loisaida Center. But due to COVID, I think this was the only way we could really have this meeting and engage many people. But because we went to Zoom, which is amazing, normally this meeting has, I don't know, 25, 30 people. I don't know, we had 78 or more people sign up for the meeting. We have some people even tuning in from around the world. So that's exciting as well, that whatever we do here locally on the Lower East Side in New York, addressing climate solutions and this inspiring model and ecosystem really resonates and has meaning to people around the world as well. So, that's great to know. So tonight's meeting, we have 5 speakers plus me as the 6th. We will be presenting Lower East Side sustainability initiatives. We have Wendy Bauer speaking to Lower East Side sustainability initiatives and also how that connects to global climate challenges. We have Charles Crizel presenting on gardens and green infrastructure. We have Pat Arnau, who will be presenting on the East River Park action and current status of what is going on with the East River Park and coastal resiliency planning with the community. We also have Didi Mauscher, who will be presenting on her bioarts and bioremediation projects, as well as Kathy Kreutzberg, who joined in with Didi and worked on bioarts projects for the Ecological City project last year. And there was a lot of interest in bioarts using organic materials, fungi, kombucha tea grown into leather, as well as seaweed, all as materials and sculptural materials for organic and compostable art and costuming. And then I will actually present what the Ecological City pageant has looked like in the past in 2019, how we adapted it to the most strict lockdown conditions last year with the virtual pageant, and show other options for what can be done in a sort of in-between situation where we can do some live engagement, physically distant, pop-up performances. So we'll get into that, and then there'll be a Q&A section where everyone can raise their hand through the hand raising function and ask questions to one of the presenters or other. We have our workshop directors, Michelle Brody and Lucrecia Navoa, also joining in on the call. People can address questions to them. And then we're going to, after the Q&A section, we're going to do a collaborative movement and sharing of an image. So if everybody during the meeting, when you're not busy, can make sure you have an image of a nature in the city, nature on the Lower East Side, the East River Park, a climate solution on your phone. And at the end of the movement, everyone will hold their phones close to the camera on your computer, and it will be like a mosaic of all of these nature climate solutions that we will share together. So just sort of a fun collaborative thing we can do at the end. Okay, so I guess that's what I have to say in terms of the introduction. And Hannah, you can.
Sure. All right. Hi, everyone. It's so great to see everyone, even virtually, so we can come together and see how we can collaborate this year. First, I want to introduce our first speaker, which is Wendy Bauer. Wendy will be speaking about the Lower East Side sustainability, green map systems, and local solutions. So we're going to get her presentation up, and let's bring up Wendy here.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Wendy.
Hey. So, oh, I'm spotlighted. Are you putting up my show or am I doing it?
Yes, Crystal should be putting up there we go.
Okay, so, I've lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years, and it's such a good green place. Today, I decided to focus my talk on green infrastructure and weave the community into that. Next slide. It's all based on this little map that I made for a bike tour we did a couple weeks ago with Fanny and Pat, and you can download it if you want at that URL. Next slide. Um, the tour began at the Museum of Reclaimed Urban Space over on Avenue C, and it's a repository of how did we get this way. So I highly recommend visiting it sometime and learning more about the history of the gardens and housing movements. Right now, Green Map has a show up as well. Next, oh, by the way, as part of the green infrastructure, there's a sump pump in their basement. Yes, they are on top of one of the groundwater / historical rivers of the East Village. Next. Right on the corner, you can see you're really in the epicenter of the community garden district right there, because you have two amazing gardens right across from each other. La Plaza Culturelle has rain barrels, ponds, French drains that collect rainwater. There's all kinds of solar, composting native plants. And they've hopefully someday we'll have a bioswale, a rain garden out front as well. So our gardens are really our organizing space, our oxygen, our place to meet people we might never talk to otherwise and work together. So they're really all about resiliency. Next slide. On our tour, our next stop was Avenue B, which is an open street now from 6th to 14th Street, and we're aiming to make it permanent. So pretty soon there's going to be a petition that you can sign for that. And it's really important, not only in COVID time, but all the time, that we don't continually cede all our public space to cars. We have a lot of people in this neighborhood without cars who, and there's an imbalance. One of the things that's also imbalanced is the number of street trees that we have. So we're rather low, especially if you even compare us to the West Village. So if you can see J.K. Canepa on the lower right. She's tending one of the tree beds with little kids. If you want to get involved in tree stewardship, it's a really nice way to give back to the community. And of course, if you see crapola in them, feel free to take it out. The trees will thank you. Next, please. We continued on our tour into Tompkins Square Park, and you might not know, but that park, until the neighborhood was drained and developed, was wet at high tide. So you can see on the 1609 map on the left where the underground rivers, subterranean water is flowing, or was flowing back then. We don't know where it is now, but we know, because people's basements floods anecdotally, that it's still around. And you can see the flood zones, how impacted this neighborhood is by climate change and sea level rise. So we all need to be doing something about that, and we all are. Next. Here's another scene from Sandy, where at 8th and C, high water was pretty high. And there's small things that people are doing, like the Girls Club has a rooftop garden that absorbs rainwater, supports pollinators and people. What I'm really sad about on the right is the Big U upland greening plan that has yet to happen. I believe it will someday, that we will have lots more green space and green corridors in this community. But this is something that many people have as part of their vision for this neighborhood. Next slide. By the way, last night I heard we're getting more bike lanes, Avenue C, yay. Avenue D though, which is where some of the people on the call last night thought the buffered bike lane should be, because it's a wider street and less traffic. But right now, if you go down there, you will go down Avenue D, you will see, well, that the campuses for NYCHA are all fenced off, and they are getting and flood hardening and repairs from Sandy right now, and they have no green space at all. So imagine there's 28,000 NYCHA residents in our community who do not have access to their public green space. So imagine how important our parks are to them, as well as to the other 110,000 people in the neighborhood. Next slide. Oh, this is a little bit out of place, this slide, sorry. But really it's in place. If you're on 7th Street, no, go back, go back. This is fine. You know, when you're in East River Park, go to the next slide, please. Sorry, Hannah. I want to show you that although we don't know what's going to happen right now with the compost yard in East River Park. I'm sure Pat's going to be talking more about that, so I won't say so much. But on 7th Street, there's a longtime space that Lower East Side Ecology Center has kept as a beautiful garden. And even though the future is unwritten right now, it's on all of us. I'm sure virtually everybody on this call composts. And this is the world-class compost center that helped us all get it going in this community. So we need to do more to stand up for all our compost, community compost in this city. For some reason, the city, although it just signed a circularity initiative, doesn't get it. I know that other speakers here will be talking about some of the other practices around bokashi and other things that you can do to reduce your food waste. It's a huge greenhouse gas producer. So let's take care of it. Well, next slide, please.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ask you to end your presentation now because we have to stick to 5 minutes for each presenter.
Oh, okay.
I can give you about a minute if you want to wrap up, and then we'll move on to the next participant. Okie dokie. Next slide. Well, I was basically going to say, get ready for a story from Pat, who I believe is next, about East River Park, because it's really heartbreaking in so many ways, but it's also a cause for our community to get together. So I'm going to pass it off right there. Great, thank you so much, Wendy. Wendy Brower, everyone. I'll cancel our spotlight here. Okay, great. And our next speaker is going to be Charles Krezel for lungs, and he'll be speaking about community gardens. Let's see. Charles is on the call. I don't see him on the call. So we'll go ahead and move forward with the East River Park waterfront. And so that's going to be Pat Arnall speaking about East River Park action.
Hello, everybody. I just want to remind everyone that we just had the, I have to change the exit full screen so I can see my presentation. Okay, that 8 years ago, around this time, was Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, and that was very tough on our Lower East Side and East Village and East River Park. Next, please. And the park, like our neighborhood, came through, were damaged but resilient. The next several years, the community worked with the city on plans for flood control that became more and more elaborate as they went along. Next, please. This is one of the ideas of going over the marshland that would develop. Next. Then this is the idea for berms that would go down into the park, and it would just be just as effective as flood control and retain quite a bit of our park. Next, please. And this is an idea of covering the entire FDR Drive with a park with more parkland. And so we would lose some parkland as sea levels rise, but we would gain parkland. It would be quieter, we'd have fewer emissions. Everybody loved this idea. And yet nobody's pursued it for some reason. And then the plan became more and more bloated as it went along. Next, please. And you can see the city, all of a sudden they have the bike path is right next to the FDR Drive, and there's a giant wall coming up from there, a hill that goes into the park. And all of a sudden, the city 2 years ago changed the plan and decided to completely demolish the entire park, raise it up 8 feet, put a seawall along the East River, and put the bike path along the FDR, and became an incredibly miserable plan. And then next, please. And you can see here the FDR drive that brings us all the nice emissions. But now the current plan, in the current plan, they've decided they won't destroy the whole park all at once. It's just going to be phased destructions. And there's some problems with the plan. And the first thing is that timelines are not to be trusted with the city, as you probably know. There was a promenade, the 1.2 mile promenade was closed behind chain link. Next, please. Was closed behind the chain link fence for 10 years that it took the city to replace it. You can see there, that's some of the construction work. And at the upper right there, there's a tree growing in the ditch because they didn't do anything for years on end. As they repaired the bulkheads. And so we're a little snake bit about when they talk about timelines. And then the city has delayed, next please. The city has delayed because of COVID, they say, but actually it's because they just haven't gotten their stuff together to destroy our park. And one of the problems is we have no interim protection. So if there's a storm between now and the several years that it's going to take for this massive plan to be built, we're just going to get drowned. And next, please. So that's a major problem with what they're doing now. We're very concerned about the air quality when the park is dug up. It's an old landfill and can raise toxic dust. We'll lose 1,000 trees, and that's a picture of some of the beautiful oaks along the amphitheater that are on a hill. They did not get flooded during Sandy. And then many of the trees that did get flooded, they recovered, even though they're not even saltwater resistant trees. And there's going to be 900,000 tons of fill that's going to add particulate matter, and extra particulate matter leads to higher rates of death from COVID-19. And then next, please. The city is supposed to be providing alternate park space, which we desperately need. There is going to be the bike path on Avenue C, but you can see here the these are people you see all the time in the park who are can't just walk down the street very easily, but there's a place for them to go. Next. Let's see what we have here. Oh yeah, these are some more of the kids. The kids, where are they going to go play? One of the places they picked out is Pier 42. Next, please. Oh, here's just some more people who need this park. Keep going, please. One more slide. Yeah, here it is. Pier 42, just south of the park. That's supposed to be parkland for us to use while they're demolishing East River Park. That's how it looks today. It's a mess, and it's way behind schedule. All of these reasons are the reasons that we formed East River Park Action a year ago in June, and we continue to fight against all the odds. And we've developed a strong grassroots nonprofit organization. We have more than 1,000 people. We've done a lot of protesting. Next, please. I think we've got some of the protest slides here. Yeah, this is our protest last year, which Earth Celebrations was a big part of. It was fabulous. But did the politicians listen? No, they did not. So we're still raising a ruckus where we've got a petition. Next, please. We've got a petition going. We're asking the governor to stop any anything happening in the park while COVID is going on, because we need our park space for social distancing, for a place for us to go, for clean air. Um, and also that'll give us enough time to get a new mayor who might have some idea about what climate science really is and what an environmental disaster this plan is. And we're asking for interim flood protection. Next, please. I'm not sure what we got here.
Yeah, we have 1 minute. Charles just joined the chat, so I want to circle back to his presentation as well.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. You know, we want to keep the biodiversity. We want to go back to the previous plans and adapt them. Next, please. And keep the beauty and the wonders of our park. Next, please. And the natural wonders that have been there. And I think that we can have a greener plan. We can have greener solutions that will give us flood control for this neighborhood. Next, please. And I think we can maintain some of that biodiversity that we've had in the past 81 years of life in this park that has been developed, and it's possible. And the last slide, please. And that's it. Help us be activists and stop this plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. Go ahead. Thank you. Charles, if we can go ahead and circle back to you to do the presentation for community gardens. Let's see if we can get that queued up.
Okay, thank you. So I'm with, am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear
Okay. I'm with Lungs, which is Lower East Side United Neighborhood Gardens, which is a network of 50 community gardens on the Lower East Side. We have been in existence since 2011. We started Lungs in order to protect the gardens because we felt, and we still feel, that they were under threat by development in the city. We were approached after Sandy by the Governor's Office of Stormwater Recovery that wanted to do a community-based project in the gardens, using the community as a resource, and we would build green infrastructure. We signed an agreement in 2015. 48 gardens bought into at least talking about possibilities of doing things. Some of it is food, some of it is bioswales, maintenance, biodiversity. There's many different elements to green infrastructure, which we went through with the community. We had many meetings. We were trying to do some solar paneling in the gardens to bring electricity in. We were going to restructure some of the gardens because they needed some help as far as landscaping is concerned, grading, so we signed an agreement with the city, the state, and the federal government. It's federal money. It's administered through the governor's office, which is state run, and then the property is city property. So we were dealing with 3 different agencies as a community. This was all supposed to be based on a community. The community was supposed to be helping run this thing, and it was going to be a breakthrough as far as everyone's concerned about cooperation between city, state, federal government, and the community itself. So we signed an agreement in 2015. We worked on a feasibility study, which took a year. The study won an award from landscape architecture groups. It was very forward thinking, and as of now, we haven't put a shovel in the ground. So I'm here. I'm really here to talk about the problems with the idea of green infrastructure and any kind of ecological programming or projects we may come up with, and how it's really undercut by the bureaucracy and the fighting within different agencies and the governments. And we've been sitting around trying to get them to do anything for now. Well, it's 5 years. The agreement was originally a $2 million grant. Just a week and a half ago, originally we were going to do 12 bioswales. We walked around with all the city agencies, found sites. We whittled it down then to 6 bioswales. Then we finally agreed on 4 bioswales this last spring. And now we were told 2 weeks ago that the city will not allow the bioswales to be built because, as originally stated, they were going to the bioswales are in the right of way of on the sidewalks. They're I guess exaggerated tree pits, which capture water that runs down the street into a cistern system, which captures the water so it doesn't run directly into the sewer system immediately and then goes into the river. So that's the whole idea of the bioswale.
You wouldn't mind wrapping up so we can move on to the next presentation.
Okay, so my whole thing is, when you're going through these projects and you're thinking about it all, you really have to be aware of who you have to deal with and how difficult it is to deal with all these people. I know this sounds like a downer, but it's reality is it's very, very difficult to pull anything together. They will give you as much sweet talk as they can because it looks good for them to say they're doing some kind of green infrastructure, but in reality, you're going to fight with them every step of the way. So, and that's been our experience, and we're still going through that. So that's just a word to the wise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Charles. All right, next we're going to hear from Dee Dee Moucher of the MOS Collective, and she's going to tell us a bit more about her bioremediation sculpture.
Anyway, I have an organization. I was just thanking Felicia in the silence maybe for organizing this, and all the speakers that came before me. They sort of lead up to sort of create a background for creating art, which is what I do. Although I didn't know I was really creating art until the art community started inviting me to teach classes and speak about what I was doing. So I was like, oh, I guess it is art. But it's science, and it's the idea is that I can live a lifestyle and also help the earth and build community at the same time. So so through studying permaculture and community development and community organizing and settlement design, I guess, the soil, this is like speaking to the soil and people, and how the soil is sort of, to me, a real good basis for developing anything above that. Like the microorganism is my biomimicry. Like I'll look at the microbes and how they're living. And it's so interesting because I was doing this before I met Shig, and then Shig really helped me dive into it even further with the EM1 solution, which is here we're making mud balls. Next. I forgot to say next. I'm like, it's still the same slide. So I call it Masters of Succession, like the succession of soil, which was the terra preta that was found in Brazil. The culture is gone, but they were taking care of their soil for many, many years and eons. And it was just found that they had built this really beautiful soil called terra preta. I was like, well, maybe if we can just live our lifestyle like they are to create better soil, water, and air. And so I called it Masters of Beneficial Succession, MOBS, to really define not detrimental succession, but beneficial succession, and the lifestyle. So LOBS, which is the lifestyles of bioremediation and symbiosis, which is how I define that even further, and to live the lifestyle. Next. And here is just a permaculture flower that you can look at later. Next. And this is the show that I just finished, which helped me, thanks to Grace Exhibition Space. I was able to create the sculpture for Earth Celebrations, although I thought I was going to be doing a really big sculpture, and it turned out with the COVID and everything, I ended up making a puppet version. Someone had given me the idea to do that. And so I also ended up creating a show, an exhibition in the space, and creating mud balls for each person who died of COVID. And the mud ball was sort of my art project to make many, many mud balls and to teach people how to do that. And from there, I continued on to elaborating into different steps onto which became a metropolis, the idea of drawing up the metropolis and seeing the future that we have yet to unwritten to write. So now's the time to write the future. And so I created sort of a pedagogy into which that would be a journey and a doing, not so much a showing, although that's what it was because of COVID, but it's a real doing. So next. I forgot, this is lifestyles of Earth and Us. So this is the steps that I came up with. So wellness, and then I came up with creating, coming up with whatever, asking myself, what are the beneficial supply chain and resource flows? And then creating relationships from that. And from that relationships, looking at story mapping, which I brought in Wendy Brower. And then we were doodling the future, and then creating the ephemeral piazza, which is the next thing I'm about to do for the winter, creating an online place for people to get together and have serendipity. Like, what do we do to create all these things that we're making? And as a community, we get together, we see each other at the community gardens is where I've been seeing people. And then once I started with the community garden, I started seeing people everywhere that I knew. And that was creating more serendipity and more ideas and more connection and more resources. And it just really opens up a lot of possibility that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't joined the community garden.
Dee Dee,
So next.
wrap up towards our
next. So, and this is the bio part of the work, which is the phytomycomoss molluscan meat, all the things that we can do that also create better water, air, and soil through our lifestyles. So if we start with these basic things that are also good for the earth, and they're also good for us, and put them into our lifestyles, really focus on these 6 things to really put in our lifestyles to create the better, the betterment, the exponential abundance which they create. So starting from the soil up. Next. And this is Lily teaching. So you can next. She's teaching mud balls. There's a little video. Go ahead. And the mud balls next. That's next. Throwing mud balls. Next. It might have to play it. And next. Because I'm just in this is other phases I went through to live my lifestyle to create the sculpture. Next. Bladderwrack kelp. Next. That's the sculpture that I made last year. Next. And that's it. Next. And that's it. It fell over. These are myco booms, and they were used as ballast. They have mushrooms and hair waste in them. And by the byproduct of people getting their hair cut and the byproduct of dogs getting their hair trimmed, I put it together with mushrooms, which I grow. And then I put them together. So that's, again, lifestyles coming together to create the boom which was on the sculpture to help it stay up in the water. And here is it falling over, and the ballast was able to counterbalance her back up. Next. There she comes back up. Yay. Next. So glad it's not that. Next. Oh, I guess we have to wait for it. So this is just an illustration showing all the connectivity and how my life turned into this sculpture, which turns into better life. Like everything on it is creating in its little connections of the people I know, and their connections and their connections and their connections, and all coming into this sculpture, and it also making everything better. Again, it's just really beautiful. Go ahead. Next. Exponential. I like that word. Prosimo. This is it floating away. We let it go. Next. Even though I wasn't sure that was, this is the other one from the year before. Next. Beneficial. And this is the one I did this year, the little puppet. So that was just stuff sitting around because I couldn't go out and get resources. I just used what I had. So that's why I couldn't do the bigger sculptures. If I did the smaller one with what I had sitting around with kombucha and amulets and wood and sticks and echinacea. So mushrooms. Go ahead. Next. That's the other next. Kelp and mussels. And then imagine making a lot of these. So if it wasn't just me, I'm one person, I can't really make a change with everything. But if we all worked with this idea of creating betterment through our lifestyle, we could make, and everyone wanted to make a sculpture, you know, what would 3,333 sculptures do for the water? Probably pretty good stuff. Okay, next. And then relationships next. And so that's the idea of next, creating the piazza. So I invite everyone to come to the piazza next. And these are all the people getting together and doing what they do, what they want to do, and the place they want to see. So I invite everyone this winter to come together and create the place they want to see next. That's good. Next. And to doodle the future. And there's the future, yay, in the East Village. So I invite everyone to come into the piazza and doodle and play and meet each other. Yep.
Thank you so
I
much.
guess next, I think it's over. Next. Is that it? That's the last one. Oh, next. Yeah, that's the future. That's a bike path, elevated bike path to the East River. That's it. Boom. The nervous system. Boom.
Great.
Boom.
Thank you so
Done.
much, Dee.
Thank you.
Time. We'll have to move on to the next.
Hope that wasn't too long.
No, we're okay. Next, we're going to move
Good.
on to Kathy
Thanks.
Kretzberg. She's a Lower East Side artist and helped with our zero waste costume this year. And she's going to talk to us about our bio arts workshop.
Everyone can hear me okay? So I sort of jumped into doing these workshops as a participant because I was really interested to see how to create materials for sculpture out of something that was growing. So I was involved with creating different kinds of mycelium and different kinds of mycelium hats and costuming involved for the actual pageant later. And then as I was working on the costumes and just getting familiar with the materials, then we had the COVID outbreak, and I live very close by to the 6th Street Community Center, so I was able to go over there when people were quarantined at home, and I was able to pick up some of the different materials that before, because the costumes were still supposed to be worked on through the workshops. And here's a picture of us making molds with the mycelium fungus. And later on, I was able to use Virginia creeper vines from my backyard and weave them all together and mix them up with these molds and create a part of the costume that I ended up wearing also for the zero waste costume. And so I went over and picked up a lot of these items after they were made during the workshops and brought them over to my studio, which is only 1 block away. And that's where I was able to assemble some of the costuming. So that was the mycelium was used for the bonnet or the hat of the costume. And then the kombucha leather was a little bit tricky. I hadn't really been involved with the leather, and I think we're going to have to try that one a second time because I don't think I picked it up at the right time. But it was really interesting to open up all of the leather was being grown in the basement of the 6th Street Community Center. So I went over and picked up and sort of peeled away all of the kombucha leather into these long sort of, it was like peeling a membrane. It felt like I was very unfamiliar with this material as a sculptural material. And I laid them out onto different boards. And Dee Dee, of course, is the one who set all of it up before COVID hit. And I think the plan was to create these workshops And then I was able to pick up the materials and harvest the kombucha in the basement. It was very interesting because I wasn't really sure what I was doing while I was doing it. One of the other materials that was part of the zero waste costume was the seaweed that I brought home. It was all in dry bags it was dry. And there's a picture right there of us making a hat for the costume. I ended up bringing home the kelp and moistening it and laying it out onto and making a vest out of it. And I guess this is a picture of me wearing the vest. And it sort of it was very easy to work with, and then it kind of dried into this sort of solid, sort of crinkly vest costume that I wore along the top of my shirt, as you can see in this picture, and the bonnet. There's the bonnet that goes with it. So the kelp was really interesting to work with, and I would love to do more with it in the future, because now I know sort of how to use the material and how to weave it together and how to sew it into the vest so that it comes together with like a burlap structure underneath, and then I can wear it that way.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. For the sake of time, we have to move on to Felicia's presentation next.
Okay, great. So I'll move quickly through these. I just wanted to show everybody, I think the slide should be, Crystal, at about 4 seconds each. So just keep moving forward very quickly as I speak. Is it moving forward? Okay, great. Just keep it moving. The procession for climate solutions in its full form, as it was in 2019, as you can see, went through 20 different sites between the community gardens, neighborhood, and waterfront, with performances highlighting each of the climate solution initiatives throughout all of these sites, which included the gardens, some neighborhood sites, as well as the waterfront. So you can see there was performance, there were dance pieces, there was music. Here's an example of some of the kids who created a performance to save the East River Park, and Dee Dee did the bioremediation sculpture. And then even after the pageant, we were able to present some of the images as creative testimony at the City Council hearing. So you can, I think, slow it down a little bit. I don't know. The workshops, you can see, started with a lot of people. So this was sort of at the end of February, beginning of March. And then all of a sudden, people became aware of COVID. We moved it outside, people wore masks. And then suddenly after March 11th, we were in lockdown. And Michelle Brody and Lucrecia Novoa had to live stream from home. We had volunteers that came forward, took parts of projects home. We had Rosa and Pedro, who were amazing, and live streamed from their home working on parts of projects, as well as Catherine Fragang, who did the Sustainable Development Goal mural. Here you'll see examples from some other events we've done where workshops are outside. So if we're looking to what we can do in the future for COVID and adapting, we have done workshops outside. There's a way we can physically distance, find ways we can do things safely. Our virtual pageant last year was under the strictest lockdown with over 100 videos that were contributed. And the costumes were presented in the virtual format. Can you go back to the slide that was just there? So the next one. Go forward. Yeah, stop right there. So what I did is, while the virtual pageant was playing with over 100 contributions from performers and gardeners and all the people who were originally planned to do things, I walked and live streamed a solitary walk to basically empty streets and locked gardens, greeting some gardeners along the way. And hopefully we won't be in such a strict situation come this spring. Okay, you can keep going forward. So it was just amazing to see the outpouring of creativity and adaptation, Zoom dance performances. People couldn't leave their apartments. Gardeners under lock gardens managed to do virtual. You can hold this one for a bit. Can you go back? Yeah. So, and then, you know, I didn't want to have just a virtual pageant. Wherever we thought we could do things safely, and like my solitary walk in real time through the streets, I wanted to do. Another thing we put out was Calls of the Wild, where we invited musicians and people in the neighborhood at 12 p.m. to make animal noises and music, you know, like we've been doing for the work, you know, hospital workers. And it was amazing because we had bands that appeared on different rooftops. We had other music I heard coming from corners. I have no idea who those people were, but obviously some of the messages got out. You can go forward. And then this fall, we had another COVID adaptation. You know, what was possible was presenting for the Lungs Harvest Festival. We were able to present the climate solution costumes in 3 gardens. The costumes were behind the fence, so the audience and people throughout the neighborhood walked between the gardens, viewing what was inside the garden, sort of like going to a zoo. We even had a COVID, oh, you can go back to the next slide, to the last slide, if you can go back, yeah. So, and just leave it there. So, and then the COVID distance stick marshal was there to sort of ensure that people were 6 feet apart. So I think when we're thinking about what are the kind of adaptations, and maybe some of you, when we have the Q&A, have other ideas of things that have done, I sort of see how the pageant can be adapted. Our workshops, we can, you know, normally we would accept 25 people for each workshop. I think we're going to have to maybe limit it to even less people. We can use a combination of indoor, outdoor, have viewing stations where people, if they're not all gathered around a table, can at least watch what's going on. So, and then live streaming, obviously, everything that we do. So we make it accessible. We can engage with a small number of people, have live viewing as well as virtual viewing. And then the culminating pageant, I think, you know, the idea of a parade of hundreds of people, as we would have in the past, may not be doable. They won't get permits for that. Maybe unlike last year where I had to walk by myself, we could have a small grouping of costumes, physically distanced, walking on the sidewalk to the different sites. And at the sites, maybe just a few performers interact with the gardeners. You could have a few performers doing a dance performance. You could still have the exchange ceremonies, and all of that can be live streamed, but only a few people are, whether it's a total of 10 people, whatever the regulations are at the time, we can limit the number of people that actually go into the gardens. And then another point is that we can also not advertise that. So there can be the people who know what the route schedule is, the people, the gardeners who know what time to expect this performance that's going to be presented, and the arrival of a few costume people who may enter. But we would probably maybe not publicize that because we don't want hundreds of people assembling. But at the same time, we can publicize the virtual live stream of what is happening. So it'll be more word of mouth of people knowing when things are happening at what time. And hopefully we can cover the full distance of the pageant. Not sure what's happening with the East River Park and whether it will be open in the spring and what sections will be open. You know, I've inquired, there's still no clear picture on that, but we certainly will get ourselves to the waterfront with some performances and definitely address what's going on in the East River Park and with this plan.
It's time to start wrapping up, so we have time for Q&A.
Yeah, so I'm done. So that's it.
Perfect, great. Thank you so much, Felicia. We're gonna go here to our gallery view, and now we're moving into our Q&A portion. Unfortunately, as you can tell, we do have some limited time. However, this is the time if any of you would like to ask a question. There's the hand raising feature on the Zoom, and you can ask any of the presenters, ask a general question, and you can let us know who you're directing your question to. Anyone have any
So,
questions?
Felicia, can I ask a question? Can you hear me? Yes,
Yes, Lynn.
thank you. It's Lynn Needle. I'm a choreographer and performer, and I've participated at Felicia's invitation probably for about 12 years and in Earth Celebration. And it's the most remarkable platform and pageant and vision and message. It's cerebral, it's real, it's societal, it's environmental, it's creative, it's genius, it's visionary, it's entrepreneurial, it's architectural, it's so many things. And her leadership and idea gathering and ability to bring all of you together just continually blows my mind. So my question, first of all, thank you to everybody who presented tonight. It was so engaging and so fantastic. And I think when we're all zoomed out and exhausted by Zoom platforms, this I found to be completely three-dimensional and fabulous. And I feel like I just want to run, to the water and perform and do something improvisational with all of you. As a choreographer, dancer, and gardener, avid gardener, everybody spoke to me and my heart and my ancestry. My mother's an avid gardener. She's 86 right now, suffering from part dementia. And the only topic that makes her mind clear is to talk about the garden and anything creative. Otherwise, her mind spins in different directions. So it's really medicinal what you're doing as well. It's a healing platform that you have. So I guess I don't really have a question. I have more of a comment is we have to persevere. We have to have the pageant again every May, but how can we make it? It's certainly global because we're filming and we're live and we're virtual, so it's available to the world at large on a virtual platform. But I feel like I want to just hold Felicia up at the United Nations and like on a larger, platform so people really understand the epic effort that she's put together so that instead of screaming our message that, people hear us as artists and that positive change can happen instead of like having change happen so slowly and so incrementally. So if I can help in any way, I feel like one of my closing comment is one of the most compatible atmospheres is really in Florida, believe it or not, in the Sunshine State in Delray Beach and areas where it's arts friendly and where the community is completely embracing the environment and the health for the environment. So I'm wondering if we could expand the platform to not just do what we do in New York, but maybe do it north and south and film virtually with the ocean as a backdrop, as well as the East River. So we have urban, oceanfront Florida, which I can help to advocate for with the powers that be in Delray Beach as a very hip atmosphere, and maybe even in the tri-state area, more in the Garden State in New Jersey and certainly in Connecticut. So, maybe this is the year to blow this thing wide open and, and just be even bigger and better after so many years of being so fantastic and so remarkable. And I just want to put it out there that I'm happy to help in whatever
Thank you.
way I can.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. And I do think that now that we have this virtual format, there's definitely ways that we can open it up within the virtual for sharing remote locations and other people that connect in different communities. I think we saw that last year. We even see it in this meeting where some people have tuned in. I got people signing up from Germany and Canada. So we can do what we do here in New York, but now with this technology, we can also share and exchange with different communities as well. So definitely open to that. Is there anyone else who has a question?
Yes, Sophie raised her hand, so I'm going to spotlight her now.
Thanks, Crystal. Thanks to all the people who spoke. Really moving, really important. I am a artist and animal and human rights activist, so it's a pleasure to just be around all you folks. I just had a question for Wendy. She spoke about tree stewardship, and I was wondering, how does one get into that?
Go to nyc.gov/parks, I believe, or just put in tree stewardship NYC, and you'll see there's programs, some of and you can request it to come to your neighborhood. You can also request a street tree there, and you can see the map of all the street trees in New York. And it's amazing. And the city has the data, how much each tree, like the one right out front here, is $321 a year in ecosystem services. So they've put a monetary value on the fresh air and the habitat and the stormwater sequestration, et cetera. And citywide, it's $110 million a year. So the street trees have this value. So I advise, and that's monetary, but it's also for all of us, right? It's the bird song, it's the shade, it's the rustle. How we have so lucky. This fall has been so beautiful in New York City, don't you all think? It's been just gorgeous, right? Can you take it off Spotlight? And please go on. It's a great thing to do, and you can take 1 or 2 trainings. It's not hard. And then you can go out and take care of street trees. So you become not deputized, but you have you can do it. And there's lots of people who already are. So you'll meet your neighbors and you'll do a wonderful thing and a real thing. Because who's taking care of the trees? The city staff is cut by 1/3 for taking care of trees. So we have to fill in. Especially the young trees need us. So once they get pretty established, it's not as important, but the young trees. So thank you. I'm glad you wanted to.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Wendy.
Oh.
Someone has their hand raised here.
There is a Lower East Side street tree task force that I'm on, by the way. And I will try and get the word out to Felicia when there's something that's pertinent to that question. So, or send me your email. Okay.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, Marcian, you have your hand raised. Would you like to ask your question?
Hi, yeah, I'm Marcia, and I have participated in several Earth celebrations years ago, and I have some poems that I wrote, and I wondered what opportunities or how do you see a writer functioning? I mean, what I did when I was doing poetry was I got assigned certain gardens, and I went and interviewed the people who started them, and I wrote I call them garden stories. And then we went to the garden at the time and we met the Gaia spirit, whatever, and then I read the poem. So I wondered, Felicia, what kind of opportunity do you think there might be now or in the future for a writer or poet?
Thank you so much for your question, Felicia.
Sorry, we always have poetry as part of this. And I don't know, Marcia, you may have known Steve Dalashinsky, who passed away. He every year read a poem in Campos Garden, as well as Don Yordi, who's also a poet. So I know you've participated for many years, and I invite you back, and we can figure out what site, and you can do sort of create a story. We can have you engaged on a particular site, maybe interviewing gardeners to develop.
How would I connect? How would you envision my?
Yeah, just I'll make sure I have your email. I mean, you know how to contact me, right? No, just Felicia at earthcelebrations.com. Felicia, Felicia at earthcelebrations.com. And I have your email and I'll be in touch. And yeah, love to have you part of it again. Narsha, great to see you.
Thank you.
Great,
Hannah.
thank you. I don't see any more hand
Does
raised.
Lucrecia want to say something since she's there, and Katie?
Lucrecia, you're muted. 1 second. You could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, Felicia, she shows some picture of the puppet. So I'm going to just show you very fast the last year puppet we made. We started with the ideas, cardboard sequestration, supposed to make a head with the dress. We made some changes because I was just working by myself. Zero waste, climate, water. That were the first ideas of the sketches. February 29, March 7. We have a privilege to participate with the volunteers. And also March 14. So from March 15, I was working in the studio. Fortunately, the volunteers made the hard work, which is the working with the clay. So I start adding layers of paper mache. So I take out the paper mache, start fixing some areas of paper mache, March 27, April 4, adding paper mache inside. You can see I didn't work just one Saturday, so I was working all the week. So it was very long work, more than 10 hours a day. Same thing happened with another artist directing workshop, painting faces, adding the canvas for the dresses, some sewing skills, and finally the puppet, head puppet. And because we had to be very flexible about the new circumstances, I couldn't make the cone dress. So I decided make just the front dress with the same design. So that zero waste, and the dress for the puppet, climate water, the dress, and that's it, very fast. Let me see, stop sharing. Yes, it was just a review about how we developed the project.
Great, thank you so much, Lucrecia. Yep. With our few minutes left here, as Felicia mentioned briefly at the beginning of the call, we're going to do a collaborative movement and a collaborative collage. So at this time, we ask that everyone pull up a picture of nature on your device and have that ready. And what we'll do is there'll be music playing, so you won't be able to hear me. But what we'll do is we're gonna do our hands up. They're gonna stretch to the left, then stretch to the right. And then if you're able to, I know many of us are sitting, we're gonna spin around and then hold up our image to the screen. And then so that will, and I'll be able to go through the video here and we'll see a big collaborative collage of all these images of nature. So Crystal, if you want to go ahead.
The image can be on the phone, on their phone. So they're holding, because you said device, it could mean they're confused.
Right. So as an example, I have it here on my phone. So I'll pull it up and do that. That's great. We're going to pull it up and put it on the screen. That way we can do a collaborative view. So let's go ahead and do Okay, that's great. Yeah. So if Crystal would go ahead and start our music. We're first going to do the left, right, and then spin. So just watch me visually for that, and we'll be able to do that all together.
Once upon a time, science opened up the door. We would feed the hungry thieves till they couldn't eat no more. But the poisons that we made touched the creatures down below, and they grew up in a way that we'd never seen before. Supernature, 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 supernature.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was beautiful. As we said in the chat, this Zoom call has been recorded, so we'll make sure that this has been this is accessible to everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming and being present and collaborating with us. I'm looking forward to seeing what we create this year.